All right, so get this. Today we're diving into, well, kind of head scratcher. It's this idea of like a private language.
A private language.
Yeah, like imagine, right, a language that only you get,
Mm.
because it's like totally built on your own, what are they called? Inner experiences.
Oh, I see. So like feelings and sensations that no one else could like fully access.
Exactly. Sounds kind of wild, right? But then like, wait, is that even possible?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like at first it sounds so, I don't know, so obvious, right? We all have our own inner world.
Right, totally.
But then you start thinking about it and it's like, whoa, hold on a minute. Suddenly there are all these like questions about, well, meaning how we communicate. Heck, even about like what consciousness is.
It's total rabbit hole.
Totally.
And you know who really threw a wrench into this whole idea?
Who?
Ludwig Wittgenstein, that philosopher guy.
Oh, yeah, Wittgenstein.
He basically said, nope, a true private language, not happening.
He did. He did. And to figure out why, like, why he was so convinced, we're going to look at some stuff from, that Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
They have this entry on, well, surprise, surprise, private language.
Perfect.
Don't worry, though. We'll break it down so you don't have to, like, have a PhD in philosophy to understand it.
Okay, awesome. So, like, first things first, let's get this straight. What exactly did Wittgenstein mean by private language?
Right, right. Because it's not just like, a secret code or something that only a certain group knows.
Yeah, like slang or something.
Right, exactly. He was thinking of a language where, like, the meaning of the words is completely tied to your, like, internal sensations.
Oh, okay. I'm listening.
So picture this. You have a word, right? And it's for that specific feeling you get when, I don't know, like your favorite sports team wins, scores the winning goal.
Yes, I get that.
No one else can, like, fully understand that word, because they haven't felt that exact same feeling in that exact same way.
So it's like, like trying to explain what chocolate tastes like to someone who's never had chocolate.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
You can use all the words you want, but they'll never really get it, right?
Exactly. And, the reason this idea is so, like, powerful in philosophy is because it's kind of like hiding underneath so many big debates.
Oh, really? Like what?
Okay, so think about like internal mental language, right? That idea that we talk to ourselves in our heads.
Yeah.
Or like how Descartes was obsessed with his own subjective experience, How do I know anything is real except my own thoughts? Even that classic problem, what is it called? The problem of other minds?
Oh, yeah. Like, how do we even know anyone else is, like, feeling anything at all?
Exactly. All of those, they sort of hinge on whether we can have meaning that's totally private, like no one else can access it.
So, basically, Wittgenstein was like, are you sure about that? To all those other thinkers.
Exactly. Like, hey, what if language doesn't even work that way?
Wow. Okay. So he was, like, questioning this whole, I guess, this basic assumption.
Totally. And, even the word private, it can be kind of misleading here. Wittgenstein, he was trying to get us to see that sensations, even though they feel like intensely personal.
Oh, yeah.
They aren't actually private in the way like philosophers often assume.
Wait, hold on. How are they not private? They feel like the most private thing about us.
Okay, so picture this, right? You decide, I'm going to keep a diary of my sensations, but using this private language only I understand. At first you think, yes, totally, it's my diary, my feelings.
Right. My rules.
Exactly. But here's where Wittgenstein throws, like, a curveball.
Oh, no, I don't like curveballs. What is it?
So to make this language work, you'd have to define your words, right?
Uh-huh.
But you'd have to connect them directly to the sensations. Philosophers, they call this ostensive definition.
Ostensive definition. Sounds fancy.
It is, kinda. But it's basically like you point to that feeling in your mind and you're like, okay, this is S from now on.
Oh, I get it. Like I'm pointing it to feeling and giving it a name.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Wittgenstein's point is that even this like private naming, it still needs some kind of consistency to work.
Consistency. Like what?
It's like, okay, think about how we teach a kid the word dog, right? You point to a furry, four-legged creature and say, dog. You're making a direct link between the word and the dog.
Right. And then eventually the kid learns that dog applies to like all kinds of dogs, even if they don't look exactly like the first one they saw.
Exactly. But in this private language thing, only you have access to the word and the sensation. So what's guaranteeing that connection stays, like, solid?
Ooh. So like I have sensation S today, write it down. But how do I know tomorrow when I see S It's the same feeling.
Exactly. It's not just like, is my memory good enough? There's something else going on.
This is getting deep.
It is, and it's not that Wittgenstein thought our memories are, like, totally unreliable. He's pointing to something way more fundamental.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with it.
So there are two ways our little private language enthusiast might answer the question, what do I even mean by S? And get this, both lead to, like, philosophical dead ends.
Dead ends. Okay, I got to hear this. Lay it on me. What's the first way they might try to explain what they mean?
They might just say, well, what I mean by S is this feeling, the one I'm having right now. Seems simple, right? I'm feeling it, I'm labeling it, what's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, it sounds, I don't know, straightforward.
It does, but Wittgenstein was like, not so fast.
Uh-oh, I knew it. What's the catch?
Well, he pointed out that that kind of answer, it basically squishes meaning and truth together into the same thing.
Meaning and truth.
Yeah, like if the meaning of S is only this current feeling, then saying I'm having S just becomes a long way to saying I'm having this feeling. It doesn't tell you anything about the sensation itself.
Hmm. So it's like saying a rose is a rose. True, but, like, not exactly helpful.
Exactly. And without that separation, that difference between what a word means and whether a statement is true, you can't really say anything useful about the sensation.
Wow. Okay, first answer busted. What about the second way our private linguists might try to define this S thing?
Okay, so they might say, what I mean by S is the feeling I named S in the past. So instead of focusing on right now, they're trying to, like, ground the meaning in a past event of naming.
Okay, so they're bringing in memory now. Like, I know what S means because I remember defining it.
Exactly, but the problem here is that it assumes there was already a solid connection, between S and the feeling back when they first defined it. And in this private language world, there's no way to guarantee that happened.
Oh, I see. Because there's nothing to check it against. No way to be sure they got it right in the first place.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know, building a house on sand, the whole thing could just collapse.
That's a scary thought.
Right, and that's where Wittgenstein's whole critique, it starts to get, like, mind-blowing?
I'm ready to have my mind blown.
All right, well, buckle up, because what he's suggesting is that maybe, just maybe, language has to be, like, inherently social.
Whoa. Social. You mean like a lone wolf, someone totally isolated, could never develop a language? That's pretty wild.
Okay, well, hold on. He doesn't go that far. He admits it's possible for a single person to, like, make a system of meaning, especially if they're dealing with the world around them, things they can see and touch. Think, like, Robinson Crusoe on his island.
Oh yeah, he was all alone, but he still named things, kept track of time, like, made a way to understand his world.
Exactly. The problem is how you make sure meaning stays consistent when it's all supposedly just happening in your head? Imagine Crusoe trying to explain his system to Friday when they finally meet. Could he even do it if his language was totally private?
This makes me think about how we learn language as kids, right? We don't just invent words out of nowhere. It's all about interacting with people, pointing at things, copying sounds, and getting feedback. Like, it's messy and social from the start.
That's such a good point. And Wittgenstein would argue that all that back and forth, it's not just for learning language, it's like baked into the whole possibility of language itself.
So it's like the secret ingredient that makes it all work.
Exactly. So, like, let's zoom out for a sec.
Okay.
We've been getting deep into Wittgenstein and his critique of private language, and it's definitely, like, shaken things up a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not so much about, like, destroying specific theories. It's more about questioning a whole way of thinking.
Right, like a fundamental assumption.
Totally. It makes us rethink the whole relationship between, like, our inner world of sensations and the public shared world of language.
And that brings up even bigger questions, doesn't it? Like, what does this all mean for, like, how we understand consciousness itself?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if language is inherently social, does that mean that, like, our sense of self, our inner experience, is also shaped by our interactions with others?
Ooh, those are some deep waters.
Deep waters indeed. Who knows? Maybe we'll tackle those another time.
Maybe we will.
But for now, I think we've given our listener plenty to ponder.
For sure.
This whole private language thing, it's so simple at first, but it leads to some serious philosophical depths.
It really does. It makes you question, like, the very foundations of how we talk, how we understand ourselves, even how we relate to, like, the world around us.
So, dear listener, keep thinking about this stuff.
Yes.
What really stood out to you? What connections are you making to your own experiences? What made you go,
And most importantly, don't be afraid to, like, challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah, that's what philosophy is all about.
It is. It is. So both of those answers, they kind of fall apart?
Yeah, it's like private language, no foundation.
Exactly. And the thing is, what Wittgenstein is saying here, it's like, it almost makes it sound like language has got to be social.
Whoa, hold on. Social? You mean like someone totally alone, like a hermit or something, could never come up with a language?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, he gets that a single person could come up with some system of meaning, especially, if they're interacting with the world, stuff they can see and touch.
Right, like Robinson Crusoe, right? Stranded on his island.
Exactly. He was by himself, but he still, named things, figured out ways to track time. He made a system to understand his world.
He did.
The real problem is, like, how do you keep those meanings consistent when it's all happening inside your head?
Yeah, it's like, how do you even know you're using the same word for the same thing from one day to the next?
Right? Like, imagine if Crusoe had to explain his system to Friday when they finally met. Could he even do it if it was all in his head?
That's a good point. It makes me think about how we learn language as kids. Like we don't just invent words out of thin air.
Right.
It's all about interacting with people, pointing at things, trying to copy sounds and getting feedback. It's like messy and social right from the start.
Exactly. And for Wittgenstein, that back and forth, it's not just about learning language. It's about, like, the possibility of language existing at all.
Wow. So it's like the glue that holds it all together?
Yeah, the secret ingredient.
Okay, I need a minute to process of
Yeah,
this.
take your time. It's a lot.
So basically, we've been exploring this idea of a private language. And it seems like, according to Wittgenstein, it just doesn't hold up.
It doesn't.
It's not about him, like, attacking specific theories. It's more like he's questioning this whole way of thinking.
Exactly. This assumption that we can have these private meanings locked away in our heads.
And it makes you think, like, what does this mean for how we understand consciousness?
Whoa, yeah. Like, if language is inherently social, maybe our inner experience, that sense of self we all have, it's shaped by our interactions with other people, too.
Man, that is some deep stuff.
Deep stuff indeed.
Who knows? Maybe that's something we can dive into another time. But for now, I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on.
We have.
This idea of private language, it's so deceptively simple, but then, bam, it drops you right into these, like, philosophical depths.
It does. It does. It makes you question how we communicate, how we understand ourselves, how we even relate to the world.
Totally. So, listener, what are your thoughts? What stood out to you? What connections are you making to your own experiences?
Yes. What made you go, hmm?
And hey, don't be afraid to, like, challenge your own assumptions. That's what philosophy is all about, right?
Exactly.
It's weird, right? We start talking about this language that, like, only you could understand. But now it seems like with Wittgenstein and all, maybe understanding actually needs these, like, shared connections.
Totally. It's like a total flip. We usually think of understanding as this thing that happens, like, just inside our own heads.
Right, isolated.
Yeah. But Wittgenstein's like, nope, maybe it's more about connecting those individual experiences to something bigger, something we can, like, share and build together.
So language is less about expressing, like, our lonely little selves and more about, I don't know, building bridges between them.
Yes, exactly. And that's where the real, like, magic of communication is. It's not just about, like, transmitting data, it's creating shared meaning.
This makes me think about empathy. Like, if we're trying to build these bridges between minds, how important is it to be able to, step into someone else's shoes, see the world from their side?
That is, like, the question. Because think about it, really getting an explanation, it's often more than just understanding the logic, right?
Right.
It's also about connecting with the person who's doing the explaining on like, an emotional level, seeing why they find it, interesting or important, even if you don't immediately get it.
Oh, yeah. It's like, even if I understand, I don't know, like, all the technical stuff about how a car engine works, if I don't get the mechanic's passions for cars, I'm probably not going to really appreciate their explanation.
Exactly. And that's why the best explanations, sometimes they go beyond just facts and figures. They're the ones with stories, analogies, personal stuff, things that help us connect with the person as, like, another human being.
Yeah, it's like the difference between, I don't know, reading a textbook and having a conversation with someone who's really passionate about something.
Totally. Like, one gives you the info, the other makes it, like, come alive.
Exactly. And that's why this private language idea, it's so, I don't know, provocative. It's like, it shows us that understanding, it's not this solo mission. It's this collaborative thing, between minds, building bridges, sharing perspectives, and ultimately leading meaning, but together.
Beautifully put.
So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this. Don't underestimate shared meaning. Don't be afraid to, like, reach out, ask questions, challenge yourself, and build those bridges of understanding with others.
Yeah. Because it's through those connections, those shared journeys that we really learn and grow and, like, expand how we see the world and our place in it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll sign off for today. Keep those brains buzzing, folks, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.